Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be taking a look at and discussing the results of the poll that asked you what you thought of the trailer for Skeleton Crew, and as usual, I'll also be reading and responding to some of the comments that were left on the poll. And so let's right away get to the results, where we'll see that 3% of those who voted said it looked amazing, 17% then thought it looked pretty good, another 44%, or about half really, said it looked okay, which left 20% to say it didn't look very good, and a final 16% to say it looked horrible. And yeah, I can't say I'm all too surprised by these results. It seems like most are kinda somewhere in the middle, though overall it skews a bit towards the negative, which I do think the Acolyte is perhaps a bit responsible for. I think that show left a rather bad taste in the mouth of many fans, and well, this ain't exactly washing it out. This isn't the show that is going to save Star Wars or bring back a bunch of people who have abandoned the franchise or anything like that. Not that I think it is trying to do or be that exactly. I think it's a show that, for better or worse, is just kind of gonna be there. It's a show I think a lot of fans are just going to either ignore for a lot of different reasons, or they're going to watch it and think it was fine, if not pretty good, for what it is, a kid's show really. And even if it is bad, they'll shrug their shoulders and just kind of move on. And no, I'm not trying to be negative here or say I thought the trailer looked bad. I actually thought, for what it is, it looked pretty good, maybe even great, again, for what it is. And if I were, 9 years old or something, I probably would have absolutely loved the look of this and been super excited to see it. But of course, I'm not, nor are, if we're being real, many Star Wars fans. I don't know that there are a lot of young people who love Star Wars these days, certainly not the way previous generations did, which is maybe part of the point or hope of this show, to try and hook them with something like this, something that is aimed directly at them. And sure, it could end up being that adults find this very enjoyable as well, don't get me wrong. It could be that I end up very much enjoying it too, and I hope I somehow do. I'm just saying that I don't expect this to make huge waves one way or the other, and if it wasn't Star Wars, it is almost certainly something I would never watch, and I'm thinking or guessing that there are going to be plenty of Star Wars fans out there who kind of feel the same way. And maybe to the point where they're actually not going to watch it. They're not going to give Disney their money for a show that, again, is clearly aimed at very young kids. And no, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, with making a show very much for kids. But again, not to be negative, I think I'd be rather surprised if this kind of moves the needle with virtually anyone, with either the younger generation that they want to turn into fans, or with anyone who is currently a fan and is a bit older. I don't think this is something that makes or breaks Star Wars for anyone, really. Again, I just feel like the show is kind of going to be there. Alright, and now let us move on to some comments here, but not before once again just taking a moment to say thank you to everyone out there who votes, comments, or watches these or any of my videos across both the channels. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Also a huge thank you to those who support my channels on Patreon. I very much appreciate it. And now on to the comments, starting as always with the top rated comment from the poll, which this time came to us from Crosshair, who simply said, "Didn't even watch it." And I was considering putting a didn't watch it option in there, keeping in mind I only get 5 total options, so I have to replace something else with that. But I kind of thought most would just end up watching it regardless of how much interest they do or don't have in the show, kind of just out of curiosity or to get an idea what this Star Wars show is going to look like. But considering how popular this comment was and others like it, and that not a lot of people really participated in this poll, relatively speaking, or compared to how many people I usually get, well, it seems like I probably should have done that. Seems like a lot of people out there are really not interested in this at all, not even enough to watch a 1.5-minute trailer. Which I think is part a commentary on the current state of Star Wars. Of course, it's also part that there hasn't been a whole lot of hype around the show going into the trailer. I don't think a lot of people even knew this was coming or what it was supposed to be. And I also think those who did know about it might be a little less interested in it because of just how for kids the show is supposed to be. But anyway, let's now move on to this comment from Jeremy Davin, who said, This doesn't look like it will spit in the face of fans and George Lucas like The Acolyte, but it also doesn't look like I am the target audience for the show either. Hopeful, but not holding out. And yeah, I agree with this sentiment. Overall, I think the show looks pretty harmless, I think is the best way to put it. Like I was saying before, I think it's just kinda gonna be there, and if some end up enjoying it, I think that's cool, that's great. And if others don't like it so much, they won't care, really, because it's not so much for them. They are clearly not the target audience, speaking of older fans here. And because they likely aren't going to try to spit in the face of fans or of George Lucas or of the Jedi. I don't think there are going to be any major lore implications or anything like that in this show. It is certainly not going to be like The Acolyte, where it tries to kind of change our perception of the Jedi or paint them as kind of bad guys and then paint the bad guys as sympathetic and like we should be rooting for them because, they want freedom. The freedom to kill people, I guess. But anyway, I think if the show ends up being bad, no one's really going to care or get that upset. It'll just kind of fade into history, if you will. And if it ends up being good, or maybe really good, it'll just be a surprise, to be sure, and a welcome one. Alright, and now on to this comment from Alugar De La Cruz, who said, "All I'm wishing for is please be good for once, and not even good as in passable, I mean good." And that would be, as I just kind of said, that would be a very pleasant surprise, to be sure, and a welcome one for this show to be good. And I agree with you, I do mean actually good. I do think some fans have kind of lowered their standards to the point where if it isn't horrible, if it's not terrible, it is now considered to be good somehow or like some type of win. Which is really, really sad that a Star Wars show not sucking is something worth celebrating. Or that we have to listen to the people who keep saying we should just be grateful to get any Star Wars at all, as if it just materializes out of the ether, and we don't have to pay for it, we get it for free. But I am tired of the people who say just be grateful to get Star Wars, be grateful of this thing that you pay for, don't be so judgmental of it, and just find ways to enjoy it regardless of how good it actually is or isn't. And my favorite is when people tell me I should just look for the good or the positive regardless of anything else. I should look for it in these shows when, if they actually were good, that would be, it should be self-evident if it is. If something is good, I shouldn't have to look for the reasons why I enjoyed it. Again, it should just be pretty obvious. I shouldn't have to manufacture explanations in my head for the bad writing. And so, yes, I really do hope that Skeleton Crew is actually good. Or that it can be good for what it is trying to be. I am not expecting Andor here, but if it is a fun adventure that again is geared towards that younger audience, but does find a way to be entertaining for adults as well, I think that'll be good. I think that'll be great. Not good enough to, like I said, make huge waves or anything like that. It's not saving Star Wars, but at least it'll be a good show, I guess. At least it'll be something good and enjoyable to watch from Star Wars. Okay, and let's move on now to this comment from Striker NF, who said, "They quite literally key jangled us with a Jedi LMAO." And yeah, they really did, didn't they? But honestly, I don't think Jude Law's character is going to turn out to be a Jedi, nor do I think what they find buried is going to turn out to be a Jedi temple. I think, for whatever reason, Jude Law's character is going to use the kid's fascination with the Jedi against him. He's going to use that to get him to go along with something that, for some reason, he will need him for, and in the end, the kid will figure out he's not a real Jedi, but will nevertheless use the ideals of the Jedi to make some type of a right choice. He will be the Jedi in the end, which sounds like a very kids show thing to do. Alright, and now we got this comment from Yoda Man, who said, "Instead of taking me to a galaxy far, far away, the galaxy is being brought to a suburb near me." Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that somewhere in the Star Wars galaxy, there's a planet that would have something akin to modern-day Earth suburbs. I just wish that planet didn't look so much like modern-day or 1980s Earth suburbs. I think they could have gone for that look or vibe and also added a bit of an alien twist or flair to it and got the same point across. I'm not saying this is some sort of absolute deal breaker for me. I just think it was a really odd decision. It felt like Guardians of the Galaxy, not Star Wars. I don't know that I really need to see something that on the nose, if you will. Again, you can do a suburb vibe or feel in Star Wars, certainly. Certainly there would be a planet like that, right? But to make it look so much like our planet, I mean, it's funny, it was the first thing in the trailer, really, and it pulled me right out. But thankfully, the back half, where they do leave this planet, pulled me back in. I think most of the series, obviously, is going to take place out in space, so we'll have that first episode on Earth, Suburbia, and then we'll be out in the galaxy for the rest of the series. Alright, and let's do just one final comment here, and it comes to us from Benevolent Sunday, who said, I think the trailer adequately conveyed the Goonies Stranger Things vibe that it sounds like the show is going for. As someone who enjoyed both of those, I hope with all my heart that Skeleton Crew manages to capture what made them special. However, given Disney's track record with Star Wars, I don't have much faith that they will be able to. And yeah, I agree. I think it captured the vibe really well. It certainly got across from what we've heard, what it wants to be, especially the Goonies part, I'd say. I don't know if it got the Stranger Things vibe across, but I absolutely got Goonies from it. Almost too much, I would say. Not that I don't like Goonies or loved it when I was a kid, but it maybe feels like it's trying a bit too hard to give that Goonies vibe, so much so that I hope it doesn't forget to also be Star Wars. I mean, I think it will. I think once we get off that planet, like I was saying a few moments ago, it is going to have a totally different look and feel to it when we are out in the galaxy as opposed to on Suburbia planet. But as I've talked about a lot in recent videos about what is Star Wars, is it a certain type of story? Is it a certain message that's conveyed? Or is it maybe even more specific? Is it something that ties into or has to be a part of the story of the Skywalkers? Or is it something far, far more wide open? Is Star Wars just a setting, really? And of everything Star Wars I have seen so far, at least when it comes to big productions here in the Disney era and all that, this is certainly, from the look of the trailer anyway, this is one that leans the most into the idea that Star Wars really is just a setting. It's kind of like this background that you can use for all different types of stories. And I don't know exactly how I feel about that when, again, it leans so heavily into being something like Goonies, and until we see it, we won't know just how much it'll be like Goonies and how much it'll be like Star Wars and all that. But really, I get the feeling that this really is just taking that idea that Star Wars is a setting and running with it entirely. And I guess in a few months' time, we'll find out just how well that is or isn't going to work. But for now, that's all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought about the Skeleton Crew trailer, assuming you, of course, watched it. Are you excited for this? Are you not excited? Or maybe this just doesn't look like your thing. Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.